Okay, you guys. Stop everything you're doing, because what Rick Ross just did inside a Miami airplane hangar might be the boldest, most arrogant, most in-your-face response to 50 Cent that hip-hop has ever seen. While 50 Cent is out here telling the world that Rick Ross is finished, that his album flopped, that his tour seats are empty, and that his entire boss lifestyle is one big illusion, Ross did something nobody expected. He didn't drop a diss track. He didn't go on a rant. He opened the doors to a private hangar he calls the Eagle's Nest and let the cameras walk through millions upon millions of dollars worth of cars, motorcycles, arcade machines, and a private jet with $700,000 of internet installed in it. And the timing of all this? Absolutely not a coincidence. So stay right here, because by the end of this video you're going to understand exactly why 50 Cent is panicking, why Ross is flexing harder than ever, and why this 15-year feud just entered its most dangerous chapter yet. Now, let's get into it. Rick Ross recently gave a full tour of what he calls the Eagle's Nest, his massive hangar in Miami, and y'all, this is not a garage. This is not a storage unit. This is a temple of excess. Rows of luxury cars stretching across the floor. Custom motorcycles inspired by his Port of Miami era and his love for the Miami Dolphins. Arcade machines he played as a kid. Retro gaming systems. Collectibles that most people only ever saw through a store window. And sitting at the center of all of it, his private jet, polished and ready, like a monument to everything Rick Ross wants the world to believe about Rick Ross. And here's what makes this fascinating. Ross didn't frame any of this as showing off. Listen to how he explained it. He said the reason he collects is because that hangar is him at peace. His words. He said it's his me time, his one place on earth where he can be completely alone with the things he worked for. He talked about growing up without money, about being a kid who wanted the games, the consoles, the cars, and couldn't touch any of it. And he made himself a promise back then. He said once he got the opportunity, he was going to double back and get everything he ever wanted. Every single thing. And according to Rick Ross, standing in that hangar, that is exactly what he did. And the stories inside that hangar go even deeper. Ross talked about keeping old gaming systems and retro collectibles because he genuinely believes almost anything can be restored if you put the right people around it. He bragged about classic arcade games he loved as a kid and claimed he hasn't lost a game of Madden in 8 or 9 years. 8 or 9 years, you guys. He joked that he keeps several teams ready depending on who's bold enough to challenge him, and said celebrities usually don't want that smoke, because if they lose, he will remind them about it forever. He told a story about seeing a custom motorcycle he wanted, looking the owner dead in the eye, and telling him to get off the bike right then and there. The whole negotiation, start to finish, took about a minute. And when somebody asked how the man was supposed to get home, Ross laughed like the thought had never once crossed his mind. Now, I want you to hold on to that image for a second. The self-made boss, surrounded by childhood dreams he finally cashed in. Because while Rick Ross is telling that story, 50 Cent is telling a very different one. And 50's version is brutal. 50 Cent has been on an absolute rampage. After reports came out claiming Ross' new album, Set in Stone, was projected to move under 26,000 copies in its first week, 50 Cent went straight for the throat. He mocked the numbers publicly. He joked that Ross would have to go back to promoting car shows and selling chicken wings. He posted about the album hitting a new chart low and basically declared the whole thing over. And when people pointed out that Ross only moved around 19 to 22,000 first week, depending on whose numbers you believe, 50 Cent acted like a man reading a eulogy he wrote himself years ago. And it wasn't just 50 Cent talking, either. Commentators across the culture started piling on. One voice summed it up coldly, saying that if you've been in the game 15 or 20 years and you can't move 100,000 records, you're not a legend. Others went further, asking who told Rick Ross it was a good idea to go quiet musically and then come back expecting a sold-out tour. One post making the rounds showed a Rick Ross concert listing in Detroit with a start time that came and went, and 50 Cent jumped on it immediately, joking that he had never seen it that bad before and asking what Ross was going to focus on next. The wings. That's what he said. The wings. Because in 50 Cent's universe, Rick Ross doesn't recover with a hit record. He recovers behind a fryer. And y'all, this is where it gets personal, because 50 Cent didn't stop at the music. He went after the image itself. He brought up claims and reports about Ross allegedly renting property out like an Airbnb. He clowned Ross for cutting his own grass, asking why a so-called billionaire-adjacent boss is out there doing yard work to save money. He questioned whether the private jets, the cars, the mansions, the whole untouchable boss presentation actually matches the reality behind the scenes. His exact message to the culture was simple. Don't believe everything you see. Now, is that a serious accusation? Absolutely. Is there proof that Rick Ross is faking any of it? No. And we have to be fair about that. What 50 Cent is doing is rivalry warfare, the same psychological pressure campaign he has run on Rick Ross for over a decade. But here's the thing about 50 Cent. He doesn't need proof. He only needs doubt. And doubt is exactly what he's planting. Because 50 Cent understands something about this beef that most people miss. He said it himself in an interview, and I'm paraphrasing the energy here. When things go bad for Ross, Ross mentions him. When the numbers dip, when the attention fades, the name 50 Cent suddenly appears back in Rick Ross' mouth. And 50's position is that he is the permanent landlord of Rick Ross' peace of mind. That every flex, every Hangar tour, every boss speech is really just Ross performing for an audience of one. Curtis Jackson. And if you think that's an exaggeration, wait until you hear what Rick Ross said back. Because he did not stay quiet. Oh no. He came back swinging, and aimed straight at Curtis Jackson's wallet. Rick Ross mocked 50's film studio plans out in Shreveport, Louisiana, basically laughing at the idea that the project is stalling. He told 50 to put those G-Unit sneakers out so they can flop, and joked they'd end up sitting in a Costco. He even went at 50's announced music, the collaboration 50 has been teasing with Eminem and Tupac. Ross' response was savage. He said Pac has been gone for decades, let the man rest, and he told Eminem essentially to sit this one out. Then he turned around and offered 50 Cent what he called a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to come sit at his table and pitch those studio ideas like a job applicant. Read that again. Rick Ross, the man 50 Cent says is finished, publicly offered to let 50 Cent audition for him. And Ross didn't stop there. He went straight for the oldest wound in this entire feud, the Masters conversation. He looked into the camera and asked why, after 50 Cent's first album went diamond, nobody around him thought it was a good idea to renegotiate what Ross called a horrendous contract. Not after the second album. Not after the third. Not after the fourth. Then Ross drew the line he's been drawing for years. He said Eminem saved 50 Cent, Dr. Dre saved 50 Cent. All the big names propped him up. And Ross did it himself. He even took a shot at 50's loyalty, telling him to be loyal to the woman who created the shows that made him a TV power player the same way he's loyal to Eminem. That was a calculated strike, because it reframes 50 Cent's entire empire as borrowed, and Rick Ross' entire identity as self-built. That is not a man who sounds broke. That is not a man who sounds scared. That is a man weaponizing the exact same psychological warfare 50 Cent invented. Two rich men, standing on mountains of money, arguing about who gets to call the other one poor. It would be hilarious if it weren't so deeply, historically personal. Because remember, this is the Officer Ricky feud. This goes all the way back to when 50 Cent exposed Rick Ross' past as a correctional officer and turned it into one of the most humiliating chapters in rap beef history. 50 said Rick Ross' whole drug dealer persona couldn't be real because you can't have a criminal record and become a correctional officer. 50 sued. 50 trolled. 50 built, in his own words, a portfolio of dead bodies, and he has always counted Rick Ross as the centerpiece of that collection. Tony Yayo himself has laughed about it and said battling 50 Cent was something Ross never needed, because 50 Cent keeps rivalries alive for years the way other people keep houseplants. And yet, here is the plot twist that nobody in this beef wants to say out loud. Rick Ross survived it. 15 years of Officer Ricky jokes, lawsuits, chart mocking, grass-cutting jokes, all of it, and Rick Ross is still here, still releasing albums 20 years into his career, still buying jets, still naming his own price. Ross pointed that out himself. He said when you release your first album, you can never imagine that 20 years later you're still in the game, releasing your 12th body of work. Say what you want about the first week numbers. The man has outlasted almost everybody from his era. But, and this is a big but, the numbers conversation is not going away, and this is where the story takes another turn. Because it's not just 50 Cent asking questions anymore. Reports started circulating about Rick Ross tour ticket sales looking rough, with seating charts showing oceans of unsold seats and alleged buy one get one half off discounts floating around. Some fans online have even started theorizing that Ross' non-stop shots at Drake, including calling Drake's album Iceman horrendous, have cost him momentum with the broader audience. Now, let me be clear. Ticket sales, streaming numbers, and personal wealth are three completely different things. One does not prove anything about the other. An artist can have a slow first week and still be sitting on generational money. But the contrast is what keeps this story alive. The Hangar says untouchable. The chart says vulnerable. And 50 Cent lives in the gap between those two pictures. Now, back to that Hangar, because the details matter, and this is where Rick Ross either wins the argument or loses it, depending on how you look at it. Ross showed off a custom motorcycle he bought on the spot at his own car show. The negotiation, his words, took 60 seconds. He saw it, he wanted it, he told the owner to name a price and leave the bike right there. When asked how the man got home, Ross laughed and said he didn't even remember. When the bike's rumored $1 million value came up, Ross didn't confirm the number, but he didn't flinch either. Expensive was all he'd give them. He talked about seeing things in magazines, calling his people, and buying them sight unseen, joking that even if it turned out to be a scam, he'd buy the scam just for the story. He described one muscle car that supposedly runs on jet fuel, reinforced with extra metal bars so the horsepower doesn't crush the frame, a car he admits he has never once driven. But here's the detail that separates a flex from a philosophy. Ross told the cameras that some of his cars have been with him for 15 years. 15 years, through the peaks and the valleys of this exact feud. He talked about one car that got some Gucci touches back when that was the wave, and he let somebody put a little swag on it, and he kept it anyway. He talked about buying a bike he saw in a magazine, calling his people, and telling them he wanted it, fully aware it could have been a scam, and deciding he'd buy the scam anyway just because his mind was made up. Whether you hear that as confidence or chaos depends entirely on which side of this beef you're standing on. 50 Cent's fans hear a man who spends impulsively to feed an image. His fans hear a man so far past financial anxiety that a scam is just entertainment. And then there's the jet. Y'all, the rules on the jet alone tell you everything about the Rick Ross experience. No shoes on the jet. That's the law. If you're not the boss, you don't make the rules. Ross explained that the plane was never about vacations or date nights. It's a business weapon. Meetings in one city, event in another, home by midnight, never depending on anybody else's schedule. He said he refused to charter jets for years because borrowing luxury wasn't the point. Ownership was the point. And that $700,000 internet system? Ross says the phone call that starts before takeoff never has to stop. FaceTime, streaming, business, all of it live from 40,000 feet. In his framing, the jet doesn't cost money. The jet makes money. He even mentioned that his hangar neighbors include the private aircraft of billionaires, casually name-dropping that Jeff Bezos' jet sits nearby. And whether that detail impresses you or makes you roll your eyes, it does exactly what Rick Ross intended. It paints his daily reality as another universe compared to where he started, just blocks away, in a childhood where owning a hangar wasn't even a dream he knew how to have. And here's one more layer that makes this moment so combustible. This isn't happening in a vacuum. Ross has been taking public shots at Drake too, calling his project horrendous, and some corners of the internet genuinely believe that picking fights on multiple fronts is draining his momentum. Meanwhile, 50 Cent is out here simultaneously building a television and film empire, teasing music with Eminem, and still finding the time, every single week, to post about Rick Ross like it's a scheduled appointment. When an interviewer once asked 50 whether he attacks Ross or Ross attacks him, 50's answer was basically this: why would I ignore it when I can destroy him and build a portfolio of dead bodies? He said it warns other artists not to compete when they're not ready. He compared it to a coach calling you champ on your first day at the gym, like that means you're ready to fight Floyd Mayweather. That is how 50 Cent sees Rick Ross. A first-week amateur who has been swinging at a champion for 15 years. So now we've got the full picture, and this is where I need y'all to really think. On one side, you've got Rick Ross standing inside a monument to himself, telling a story that is genuinely powerful. The kid who couldn't afford the arcade games now owns the arcade. The dreamer who watched jets fly overhead now parks one next to billionaires. The artist 20 years deep who refuses to let one rough week define a legacy. That is the Rick Ross version, and honestly, taken on its own, it's one of the great self-made stories in hip-hop. On the other side, you've got 50 Cent, the most relentless rivalry engineer the culture has ever produced, holding up a calculator. 19,000 first week. Half-empty venues. Discounted tickets. Grass jokes. Airbnb whispers. A challenge to the entire concept of the boss image. 50 Cent's argument isn't really that Rick Ross is broke. It's that Rick Ross performs wealth louder than his receipts. And the cruel genius of it is that every time Ross flexes harder to answer, he gives 50 Cent more material. The Hangar tour was supposed to end the conversation. Instead, it fed it. And notice the chess move underneath all of this. 50 Cent says Rick Ross only gets attention when he mentions him. Rick Ross says 50 Cent is infatuated with his lifestyle. Both of them claim the other one is obsessed. Both of them claim they're barely paying attention. And both of them, every single time, respond within days. 15 years, you guys. 15 years of two men insisting they don't care about each other in the most detailed, elaborate, expensive ways possible. So here's where it all lands. The Eagles' Nest tour was Rick Ross' answer to a flop narrative, and as an answer, it was loud, shiny, and impossible to ignore. But answers made of chrome and jet fuel don't close questions made of numbers. Set in stone's first week is what it is. The tour seats are what they are. And Curtis Jackson, who has built an entire second career out of being right about his rival's weakest moments, is not going anywhere. Think about the audacity of this man. He has spent 15 years treating this feud like a second job. He has turned mocking Rick Ross into content, into marketing, into a reminder to every artist watching that there is a price for stepping to him and not being ready. And on the other side, Rozay has turned surviving him into a brand. Every joke that was supposed to end him became fuel. Every headline declaring him finished became a hanger, a jet, a bike bought in 60 seconds. That is why this rivalry refuses to die. It isn't just conflict anymore. It's mythology. One man needs to prove the empire is smoke. The other needs to prove the smoke was never the point. And the rest of us? We keep watching, because deep down, everybody wants to know which version of the story survives the next round. He told the world years ago that he would do this for fun, that nobody controls him, that when the attention from a beef goes away, the other guy goes away too. So far, he's been wrong about Rick Ross going away. The question is whether he's wrong about everything else. And one more thing before we wrap this up. Notice what Rick Ross did not do in that hangar. He never showed a sales figure. He never showed a ticket count. He showed you everything except the one thing 50 Cent demanded. So the real question isn't whether the cars are real. It's why, in a hangar full of proof, the numbers were the only thing left outside. Because let's be honest about what this feud actually is in 2026. It is no longer about who started it. It's about who benefits from it. Every time 50 Cent posts about his rival, his engagement spikes. Every time Rozay answers, his name trends. The beef is 15 years old, and it still prints attention like a machine. Both men know it. Both men use it. And both men would deny it to your face while scheduling the next round. Some fans say it's the most entertaining rivalry in hip-hop history. Others say two grown millionaires arguing about grass and sneakers is beneath both of them. Where you land on that probably says more about you than it does about them. Now I want to hear from y'all, because this one is going to split the comment section. Is Rick Ross a self-made legend enjoying 20 years of earned success, or is the boss image running on fumes while 50 Cent reads the receipts out loud? And bigger than that, did the Hangar tour actually win this round, or did Ross just hand 50 Cent 15 more minutes of material? Drop your take in the comments. If you were outside during the peak Officer Ricky era, tell me which moment from this beef still lives in your head rent-free. And if you think this feud is finally done, tell me why, because I have a bridge in Shreveport to sell you. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, share it with somebody who's been following this rivalry since day one, and turn on those notifications, because the way this is moving, the next chapter is coming fast. And trust me, when 50 Cent responds to this Hangar tour, and he will, you are going to want to be here for it. And make sure you're locked in for the next upload, because we are tracking every move in this feud, and the receipts are only getting wilder. I'll talk to y'all soon.